Hello and welcome. Today on Pause for Peace, we will be talking about what inner peace even is. And is it something that you find? Is it something that you create? Or does it spontaneously find you? So I'd like to invite you to just settle in, relax, and join me in the place that I chose to record this episode, which is on the banks of a gentle and wide river here in western Montana. I can tell you that there are some gentle rolling hills covered in the golden dead grass of fall, some ponderosas standing tall and proud, and the cottonwoods have mostly lost all of their leaves. It's an unseasonably warm day in late October. There was a duck family here earlier. They've flown away. And I also accidentally disturbed a muskrat that was sunning itself on a fallen log. And I can also hear a few miles behind me the highway. So I'm not in the most remote place in the world. But I am in a place that many would call peaceful. If they saw a picture or if I asked them to bring to mind peace, what is inner peace, most people refer to beautiful natural areas. But does inner peace depend on going to a beautiful place? Well, that's something we're going to talk about. So, I'd like to start with something that makes me laugh, which is my own personal definition of inner peace. I also call this my most nunly definition. That's Nunly. Because as a freelance spiritual professional, I spend my time thinking about what is peace, what is reality, and of course it's not just thinking, it's also experiencing. But in my own explorations, I've come up with a definition for inner peace, which is lack of friction. Lack of friction. Wow, does that just sound I'm guessing for most of you that didn't immediately clarify what inner peace is. So we're going to look at some examples and do an exploration and come back to this idea, this lack of friction. And we're also going to look at different ways that people experience peace. And I'll start with my own example. Some of you may have had what I call a spontaneous experience of peace. And interestingly, that can happen in a moment of danger, when the stakes are high and you really need to be present and paying attention. Perhaps a number of you have had one of these spontaneous experiences where unexpectedly there was a calm and a clarity and you knew what you had to do to get through the situation. And that happened to me a number of years ago. I was a college student and I was traveling around in southern Argentina, as college students sometimes do. And a friend and I decided to go on a horseback ride. Now, if you've been on a trail ride in the United States, you've probably gone through the whole signing the papers, for liability. Maybe you wear a helmet, maybe you don't. But you know that the horses are pretty much just going to be walking in a line, nose to tail. You might trot for a few seconds, but it's going to be a gentle walk. It was not like that at this place in Argentina. There were about 6 of us, and no preamble, no paperwork, no helmets. We just got on and went. And We didn't usually walk in a line. When we got to the beach, the guide said, "Hey, if you want to gallop here, go for it." And so we sure did. So that was just exhilarating and joyful until we got to the woods. And we're on top of a hill, and we had to go downhill. Okay, that's a normal part of a trail ride. Horses do that all the time. But it had been raining quite a lot, and that hill was very, very muddy. And so within an instant, many things became clear to me. This hill could become very, very dangerous in an instant. All it would have taken was one horse slipping, and we could have ended up in a pileup. Right? My horse could have crashed to the ground with me on it. And I started to get afraid. I started to tense up. I mean, I had ridden horses when I grew up, but it had been a number of years since I'd been riding consistently. I wasn't the most skilled rider. And I hadn't ridden through territory like that in quite a number of years. So my mind was starting to get active about, how do I do this? This is scary. I need to... But thankfully, I had one of those spontaneous experiences of peace. It just became obvious that my job in that situation was to let go. That horse had gone up and down that hill countless times. It knew the territory. It knew its body. It wanted to get to the bottom safely. I had to let go of control and just become as relaxed and alert as possible and let the horse have its head. Maybe you've heard that expression before. It was just obvious that I would only interfere if I was, quote, trying to do it. I had to not try. I had to be a passenger and, again, be as relaxed as possible. Now, you're hearing my voice, so you know that I made it through that situation safely. We all did. And it was interesting, but it didn't even stand out to me as a big moment at that time. You know, and over the years, I lost touch with that inner peace a lot. I've had lots of ups and downs since that moment. And so that's again why I call it a spontaneous experience of peace. I didn't plan it. I didn't create it. It found me. And then I also found that, right, it just wasn't sustained. It wasn't a long-lasting experience of peace. It just showed up in that moment to help me get through that moment. And this was also a good example of what I mean by lack of friction. Because I was still quite alert. There was some fear in my body. I was worried about having a crash or being in a mudslide. But because of the peace, I was able to relax my body enough to just let that fear flow and move as it needed to, and it wasn't getting stuck. Right? If I had not had inner peace in that moment, I can tell you right now what I would have done. I would have clamped onto that horse with my legs, which interferes with the movement of the horse. Like, their back is going to get tighter, they're going to be less confident. I would have grabbed the reins tighter, which also would have interfered with the horse's movement. And there would have been a lot of friction in my body. The fear would have been just getting stuck, just not able to move freely through me and to let the experience move freely. Well, yeah, okay, great. So that was one time Juniper rode a horse in Argentina. What about the rest of life? Because, indeed, I do not suggest people seek out danger in order to experience peace. That's not what I recommend for my students. We want practices that we can do today in safety that cultivate peace. And the good news is that is abundantly available. We absolutely do not need to be in a dangerous situation in order to create peace in our life. And in fact, I think it's much more sustainable, this kind of peace that we can experience if we consciously cultivate it in daily life. That's how you're going to get sustainable inner peace, not through daredevil tricks. So, okay, fair enough. But again, what is that next step then? Do we just come to the rivers of Montana and look out at them longingly, waiting and hoping for peace? Well, that's certainly one method. Many, many people have experienced finding peace when they're out in nature, or even just thinking of a beautiful natural area can sometimes just create a good feeling inside. And the way I see it, that's all very well and good. If there are places you love, visit them, love them. And just remember, inner peace doesn't depend on that either. It doesn't depend on danger, and it doesn't depend on beauty. So what's going on then? Well, what I think is happening when we... I'm just smiling. This river, it's just charming me. It's a beauty. When we come to places with less human activity, I think what happens is that the beauty we see outside of us is just a reflection. It's just the reminder of what is already and always inside of us. Whew. The biggest mindset shift that I've gone through and that many of my students are working through is realizing that peace is here now. It's not a multi-step process. It's not a method. It's right here, right now. Always. Already. So why don't we feel it more often? I want it. I want it now. I want it always. I don't have time to always come to these beautiful rivers, okay? It's okay to feel frustrated or confused, or to outright reject this idea. Inner peace is here, now, and always? Well, fuck you, all the past difficult experiences I've had. Where was inner peace? It's about perception. How we look, what we choose to look at. I just don't think it's sustainable for me to stand by this river for the rest of my life in order to feel peace. I'm just telling you flat out, it's not. There are other things I want to do. There are other places I want to give attention to. So what is that shift, the choosing what you look at? If we can just boil it down into one step, or even just one word, I'm going to say it's desire. Wanting. You have to want to be at peace. You have to desire peace in your life. And that's what sets you up. That's what creates the shift. You just have to want peace. You don't even have to know what it is, or how to find it, or how to cultivate it. You just have to get clear with yourself. What do you want? Do you want to live in drama and chaos and turmoil? You sure can. We all have that freedom to decide. And if you want a life of drama and turmoil, that's going to be so easy to accomplish. That's the easiest thing there is. It's those moments when, God damn it, it's just such a hard day, or there's a really difficult event you've gone through. You're really feeling the pain and the turmoil all those emotions, pausing for one moment in the middle of that turmoil and just saying, yeah, no, this is not going well. I don't like this. I'm not even sure what inner peace might feel like, but I don't want this turmoil. I want peace. And that's all you need to do. Of course, there are practices that you can find or I can teach you, and that's going to speed things up a little bit. That's going to make it easier and easier for you to shift your attention from chaos and turmoil to seeing the peace that is available right here, right now, always. But it does go back to that wanting. Or some people might argue the waiting. Maybe you wait for spontaneous experiences of peace. But you don't have to wait indefinitely. You don't have to put yourself in a dangerous situation. You don't have to put yourself in a beautiful situation. Continually reminding yourself, I want peace. And then, well, we do need to have honesty. And I'm not sure that's exactly a step in the process. Could be a mindset. I think it's the close companion to peace, honesty. Because we do have to be honest with ourselves when we're not feeling peace. Right? And maybe some of you have experienced being in a beautiful place. Again, this river is it's my new best friend. The sun is shining, and I know the temperatures are going to drop to freezing next week, and I'm a little summer sun child, so I'm not looking forward to the winter, but, well, right there, I just gave you an example, right? I could be in the same place and just livid, just pissed that winter's coming, it's going to be cold, and blah, blah, blah. I have that choice. So maybe that's another word we could say. Maybe instead of wanting peace, choosing peace. Well, that can get a little tricky, that word, because often, especially if we're in turmoil, emotions get a momentum of their own. It's not like a light switch that you turn off, turn on. I think of maybe a vehicle or a cart or a wagon. You know, if it's at the top of the hill and you let go of it and it starts going downhill, it has its own momentum. You can't just shout at it to stop. It's not going to stop till it gets to the bottom. And so often when we're in a wave of emotion like that just doesn't seem to slow down or stop, it can feel very insufficient and unsatisfying to, have a moment of reminding yourself, peace is possible, I want peace, I'm going to choose peace. And maybe that's a beautiful and clear moment and you're so proud of yourself for remembering to pause. And what the fuckity fuck? Then you're just, the emotions are still strong and, controlling a lot of your day. That's totally normal. You're going to experience that a lot. But the pauses add up. They really do. So it's not about controlling. Again, with my example with the horse, I was letting go. If I had tried to control that horse and tried to control that situation, yeah, I'm not sure how it would have ended up, but it could have gotten really ugly. Letting go, choosing peace. There's a mindset shift there. There's some practices that you cultivate over time. But in time, wow, it just gets easier and easier. For me now, it can happen within a few seconds that I realize, oh, whoops, I got off balance. I'm not pointed towards peace anymore. Let me just, internal readjustment, I'm fine. You can have peace on the go in your daily life whenever you want it. once you decide that is what you want, and then you add in the practices and just give it some time. That's really all it is. And so next time you notice that emotions are getting really stuck in you, they're not passing through freely, right? There's a lot of internal friction, turmoil. Like you're bound up in knots. Well, that's actually good news, because once you realize that's what's happening, it's obvious. Like, oh, okay, this is not peace. I might not know how to find peace, but it sure isn't this. There's a lot of friction happening here. Okay. And then you move on. You know, I have my definitions and experiences of peace, but it is about you finding your own connection to peace, and ultimately the definitions don't matter. But I'd like to invite you to just spend some time today feeling into this idea of peace, maybe memories you have of experiencing peace, and especially just bring to mind and bring to body the wanting of peace. Just feeling that desire. I want peace. And that's all you have to do today. So, we'll continue talking about peace and beautiful places, meditation, chaos, all the good things. Thank you for joining me here today in Western Montana. This river is just so happy that we came here to explore peace and serenity. So I wish you well today, and I look forward to future conversations.